My name is Randy Zwier. I live in Naperville, Illinois. My wife is Pam. My son is Dustin. And we're blessed to be members of the Wheaton Christian Reformed Church. As a kid growing up, everybody thought that I had asthma, that being my doctors, myself, my family. As it turns out, I had something different. It was called bronchiectasis, somewhat similar to cystic fibrosis. I lived a fairly normal life in terms of being able to do golfing and boating and other things, but eventually what happened is that the continual degradation of my lungs was severe, and to a point where I met with a doctor who gave me bad news. The doctor said that I had about a year or two to live. In approximately 1996, we were living in our house in Naperville and had some varnish work done in the house. So the smell of varnish is very, very powerful. And even though it was summer, we had the windows open, I had a really difficult time breathing. I told my wife, I says, I really can't tolerate this anymore. I need to move into a hotel room or someplace where I can get some air so I could sleep at night, because I was having difficulty sleeping. And at one point I was walking around my bedroom and I said, I just can't take this anymore. I wish I would die. A couple of nights later, I was sleeping and I had a dream, and I dreamt that I was standing in front of Jesus and he was looking at me face to face, eyeball to eyeball. And he had these really two large fellows on either side of him. Jesus looked at me and he said, do you really want to die? And I said, not if I can still serve you. So immediately once I said that, he was gone. But it was during that time, a couple of days later, actually it was like an angel touching me, my shirt sleeve, as I was waking up in the morning, saying, Randy, get up and read Galatians 3 verse 5. Galatians 3 verse 5 says, do I work these miracles in your life because you adhere to the old Jewish laws? No, it's because you believe in Jesus Christ. So that's one I didn't know. So I'm certain it didn't come from any prior reading of some sort. I think God was once again stepping in. Again, he was apparently reading my mind because I didn't say it out loud, but he chose to respond in this way just to, again, give me comfort in the fact that he would be there for me. So I met with the doctor, and he told me that it was bad news, that I was at end-stage lung disease unless I go through the routine of getting a double lung transplant or a bilateral lung transplant. So, to me, my wife and I were both in the room. We were crying. It was very much surreal because I couldn't believe that somebody was telling me that I was actually going to die. My only option at that point was a lung transplant. They call it a bilateral lung transplant. It's a double lung transplant, and what they do is replace both lungs at the same time, and it was about a 12-hour surgery. So I had my Nissen fungification process in April of 2006, and once I had recovered from that, it took a couple of weeks, they put me on the list for organ donation. They did my acid reflux surgery on April 27th and listed me in the beginning of June, and by June 11th, I had my new lungs. So I was listed for a very short amount of time due to the fact that I'm taller than the average population. I'm just shy of about 6'3". So what happens is that, if you're an average height, there are more average sized people. And unfortunately in my case, unfortunately for me, but unfortunately a taller person passed away, and I was able to be the beneficiary of that individual's lungs. So incidentally, I did write a letter of thanks to the family through Donate Life, and they forwarded to the family, and just thanking them so much for giving me an option to have a longer life. And one of the mornings when I woke up in the hospital, I felt as though I was being lowered from heaven into my hospital bed. So I think it was just an assurance from God that he was with me throughout this process, once again. So I was in the hospital for a week and a day, and was able to go home. And I remember when I went home, it felt like a truck had not just run me over, but stopped and was resting on my chest because it was very sore, but I was able to recover. Every few weeks I'd feel a little bit better, and actually to the point after 90 days I was able to go back to work. And now I'm at a point today, here almost 8 years later, where I'm able to work out 3 times a week at the health club, do approximately 1.5 miles on a treadmill at about 3.5 miles an hour, and lift weights, upper body one day, take off a day, lower body the next day. So I'm trying to take good care, be a good steward of this body that God's given me.